The forest was silent, but the silence was not peaceful. It was heavy, pressing down on him as he opened his eyes. The air smelled strange, sharp and sweet at the same time. Above him, massive trees reached so high that their tops were hidden in mist. The human, a young explorer named Daniel, pushed himself up from the damp ground. His head was spinning, his body shaking. The last thing he remembered was the crash, the burning ship falling through the alien sky, the alarm screaming in his ears, and then darkness. Now he was alive, but he was not safe. Something was wrong with the air, something too thick, too heavy. Every breath tasted like danger. His boots pressed into soft soil, and he could feel vibrations under the earth. At first he thought it was his imagination, but then it came again. A slow, deep thud, thud, thud. Each sound was like a giant heartbeat shaking the ground. Daniel froze, his mind racing. It could not be the ship's engine, it was destroyed. It was not thunder, the sky above was calm. Then what was it? He crouched low, pressing his back against the trunk of a tree. His hands trembled as he looked around. The shadows between the trees shifted. Something huge was moving out there. The sound grew louder, closer, more real. Thud, thud, thud. Then he saw it. At first, only a shape, taller than the trees, moving slowly but with purpose. As the mist cleared, his heart almost stopped. It was a giantess. Her body was massive, her skin pale and strange against the dark forest. Her eyes glowed faintly, like an animal in the night. Every step shook the ground, breaking branches and crushing stones. Her hair was long and wild, falling across her shoulders like rivers of shadow. She was terrifying, and she was beautiful in the most dangerous way. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. He had read reports of alien life, but nothing like this. This was not a creature. This was something intelligent, something that looked like a woman, only so much larger. But what chilled him most was her face. She did not look curious or kind. She looked hungry. Her lips parted slightly as she sniffed the air. Her sharp teeth glimmered when the light touched them. She moved her head slowly, listening, hunting. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest. He pressed his hand against his mouth, trying not to breathe. But he knew she could hear him. He knew she could smell him. He thought of every story he had ever heard about predators. This was not a beast from Earth, but the feeling was the same. A rabbit before a wolf, a deer before a lion. He was prey and she was the hunter. The giantess stopped, her head turning toward his hiding place. Her glowing eyes locked on him. Daniel's blood turned cold. She knew. She knew exactly where he was. For a long moment she did not move. She simply stared, her massive chest rising and falling as she breathed. The silence was worse than the footsteps. Every second felt like a knife pressing closer. Then she took a step. The ground shook under Daniel, dirt falling from the roots above him. Another step, and the tree he leaned against trembled. She was moving toward him, slow and certain. Daniel's mind screamed at him to run, but his legs would not move. Fear had locked him in place. He was trapped, a small figure against her towering form. As she came closer, Daniel could see more of her face. Her sharp teeth, her cold eyes, the shadow that fell across him like a cage. The giantess lowered her head, bending down slightly. Her eyes narrowed, studying him like an animal ready to strike. Daniel gasped for breath, every instinct telling him this was the end. She would crush him, she would eat him. The stories had warned of alien predators. Now he was about to be the proof. Her shadow swallowed him completely. The world seemed to shrink until it was only her and him. Daniel closed his eyes, waiting for the end. But the end did not come. Not yet. Instead, the giantess paused, tilting her head slightly. Her lips curved, not in hunger but in something stranger. Something Daniel could not yet understand. And in that moment he realized. He was not prey, not in the way he had feared. But whatever she wanted was far more dangerous. The first encounter. The giantess stood only a few steps away, her enormous frame towering over Daniel. The forest seemed smaller now, as if the world itself was bending beneath her presence. Her eyes glowed faintly in the mist, shining like twin lanterns that cut through the dark. Every breath she took sent a low, rumbling sound across the trees. Daniel's heart thudded like a drum, faster and faster. He was prey, he was certain of it. The giantess leaned forward, her face lowering, her long hair sliding down like a curtain of shadow. Daniel pressed his back against the tree, trying to become invisible. His chest burned as he tried to hold his breath. Her massive eyes scanned him, not in haste, but with slow, terrifying patience. She was not an animal sniffing out food, she was something worse. She was intelligent, and she had found him. Her lips parted, revealing sharp white teeth that looked strong enough to crush bone. Daniel imagined those teeth sinking into his flesh. He imagined the end, quick or slow, it did not matter. His hands shook, his knees felt weak, but his mind screamed, "Do not move." The giantess tilted her head, studying him. It was not the way a lion watches a deer. It was the way a person studies an insect in a jar. Curiosity mixed with hunger, danger mixed with thought. Her gaze was sharp, but her movements were calm. That calmness was worse than rage. Predators chased, but she did not need to. She already had him. A hand rose slowly from her side. It was massive, fingers long and pale, with nails like curved blades. The air shifted as her shadow fell fully over Daniel. His breath caught as she stretched her hand closer. Every instinct in him screamed to run, but his body refused. He was trapped in fear. The giantess lowered her hand until her finger touched the tree beside him. The bark cracked under the gentle press of her touch. Then she dragged that same finger across the ground, leaving a mark in the soil. Her eyes never left him. It was as if she was testing the space around him. Measuring, marking, deciding. Daniel's pulse raced. He thought of making a break for it. If he sprinted into the trees, maybe, just maybe, he could vanish. But as if sensing his thought, the giantess moved her hand again. This time, she pressed her palm flat against the ground in front of him. The earth shook, dirt rose into the air. The message was clear. Do not run. Her voice came next, deep and echoing. The sound vibrated through the trees and into his bones. Daniel could not understand the words, but he understood the meaning. It was a warning, a command. He swallowed hard, fear burning in his throat. He wanted to scream, to fight, to run. But instead, he stood frozen, eyes locked with hers. The giantess leaned even closer, her face filling his entire vision. Her glowing eyes narrowed slightly. Her lips curved in the faintest trace of a smile. But it was not warm. It was sharp, cold, predatory. Daniel thought she would grab him in that instant, crush him between her fingers, lift him into her mouth. The thought made his stomach twist with dread. Instead, she pulled back slightly as though testing his reaction. Her movements were slow but deliberate. She was studying him. Not just what he was, but who he was. The silence stretched long. Only the sound of his beating heart filled his ears. The forest around them seemed dead, as if no other creature dared to move while she was near. Then suddenly her hand rose again. This time she reached for him directly. Daniel's body finally reacted. He stumbled sideways, scrambling across the dirt. His hands clawed at roots and stones, trying to pull himself away. But the giantess was too fast. Her fingers closed around him in one smooth motion. The world tilted as she lifted him high into the air. Daniel screamed, his voice breaking as he dangled above the ground. The forest spun below him, the trees looked like grass. Her grip was firm but not crushing. Her skin was cold and smooth, her strength beyond imagination. She held him like a child might hold a toy, carefully, yet completely in control. Her eyes locked onto him once more, closer now. He could see the details of her face, the strange lines across her skin, the faint glow within her pupils. Her breath washed over him, warm and heavy. His stomach turned as he waited for her teeth to open wide. But she did not eat him. Not yet. Instead, she spoke again, her deep voice rumbling like thunder. Daniel caught only one clear word. It was not in his language, yet somehow he understood. Stay. The word shook him more than the crash of his ship. Stay. Stay for what? Stay for death? Stay for something else? His fear grew sharper, but so did his confusion. She looked like a predator, but her actions were not simple. If she wanted food, she could have eaten him already. If she wanted to kill, he would already be dead. Then what did she want? Daniel hung there, breathing hard. Every part of him was screaming. But his mind whispered a single thought that terrified him even more than death. She doesn't want me as food. She wants me for something else. Fear of the unknown. Daniel dangled high above the forest floor, his body caught tight in the giantess's hand. The world below looked far away, the trees like tiny sticks, the earth like a painted floor. Her grip was firm, but it did not crush him. That small detail confused him even more. If she was going to eat him, why hold him so carefully? If she was going to kill him, why wait? Her glowing eyes studied him with cold focus. Every second stretched long, as though time itself had slowed. Daniel's mind filled with racing thoughts. He remembered the crash, the fire, the fear, yet none of that compared to this moment. Now he was trapped in her grasp, unable to fight, unable to flee. Every instinct screamed, "You are prey." Yet in the depth of her gaze, something else stirred. Not simple hunger, not simple rage. Something different, something darker. The giantess brought him closer to her face. Her breath was heavy, rolling over him like waves of heat. He gagged slightly at the strange scent, sharp, metallic, yet sweet. It was the smell of something alive, something primal. Her lips parted and Daniel froze. Rows of sharp white teeth gleamed. For a moment he saw himself between them, torn apart in seconds. His heart raced so hard it felt as if it would break through his chest. But the bite never came. Her mouth closed again, her expression unreadable. Instead she tilted her head, watching him, as if trying to learn his secrets. As if he were not food but a puzzle. Daniel's voice cracked as he whispered, "Please, don't." The words were weak, shaking. Of course she would not understand. But to his shock, the giantess paused. Her glowing eyes narrowed slightly. It was almost as if she recognized his fear. Not the language but the emotion behind it. The giantess shifted her hand, turning her palm so he sat upon it like a fragile object. Daniel stumbled, nearly falling, but she curled her fingers slightly to keep him steady. Now he was sitting in her palm, not dangling. The strange act made his fear twist into deeper confusion. Why was she holding him like this? Why not finish him quickly? His body shook, sweat dripping down his forehead. He could feel every beat of her pulse through the flesh of her hand. Each throb was strong, steady, a reminder of her impossible power. He was nothing to her. A toy, a pet, maybe worse. The fear of not knowing what she wanted burned stronger than the fear of death itself. The giantess lifted him closer, her face filling his vision. Her enormous eyes reflected his tiny form. In her gaze he saw himself, helpless, weak, fragile. She spoke again, her deep voice rolling through him like thunder. The words were strange, twisted, alien. But once more he caught one that struck his mind clear as day. Stay. That word again. Why stay? Daniel's thoughts swirled. Stay alive? Stay with her? Stay as what? Food for later? A prisoner? Something worse? His fear grew heavier, pressing on his chest. The unknown was worse than death. If she wanted to eat him, at least that had an end. But this stretched his imagination into shadows. What could she possibly want? Her head tilted again, curious. She raised a finger the size of a tree trunk and gently touched his chest. Daniel gasped, the weight of her finger pressing against him like stone. But it did not break him. It was a test, he realized. A test of what he was. A test of how fragile, how alive, how different. The fear inside him deepened. He was not prey, not food. He was something else to her. And that something was unknown. The unknown terrified him more than teeth ever could. The giantess moved again, carrying him higher. The forest below vanished into fog. Now he could see far across the land. Hills like bumps, rivers like silver lines. The scale of her world crushed his sense of place. He was not just small. He was nothing. And yet, in her hand he was everything. For in this moment, she had chosen not to destroy him, but to keep him. Daniel swallowed hard. His mind screamed questions. Was she keeping him as a pet? As a trophy? As a mate? The last thought chilled him more than death. The idea that her desire might not be hunger but something stranger, something he could not survive in spirit even if his body remained alive. That was the true horror. The giantess lowered him again, bringing him close to her chest. Her massive heart boomed inside her, deep and slow. Each beat echoed like a drum through her body. Daniel pressed back, his fear rising again. Was she showing him something? Was she warning him? Or was she reminding him that his fragile heart was nothing compared to hers? He tried to steady his breathing, but every sound of her heartbeat reminded him of his own smallness. He wanted to shout, to beg, to fight. But his voice felt too small in her presence. And part of him feared that if he spoke too loud, she would silence him forever. The giantess whispered something again, her words low and rumbling. Daniel shook his head, not understanding. But her eyes softened, not kind but thoughtful, as if she saw something inside him. Something she had been looking for. The forest grew quiet once more. Only the sound of her breath, her heartbeat, and his fear remained. And as he sat there in her palm, Daniel realized the truth that made his skin crawl. He was not facing a predator with simple hunger. He was facing a mind, a will, a desire he could not name. And whatever that desire was, it was far more dangerous than being eaten alive. The unknown, he thought. The unknown is worse than death. And he was trapped in it. The twist in desire. Daniel sat trembling in the giantess's palm, his body stiff with terror. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown, every breath tasted like the end. Her glowing eyes never left him, burning into his soul as though she could read every thought. She had not eaten him, not crushed him, not even harmed him. And yet, the unknown stretched darker than death. The giantess raised him closer to her face. Her eyes narrowed, her lips parting slowly. Daniel's stomach dropped. He thought this was it. He pictured her teeth, sharp and gleaming, ripping into his flesh. But once again she did not bite. Instead, her lips curved into a faint expression he did not expect. Not hunger, not cruelty, but something that looked almost like longing. The sight chilled him more than any predator's snarl. Because longing meant choice. It meant desire. And desire was harder to fight than hunger. Her massive finger rose again, brushing lightly against his arm. Her touch was strange, cold yet careful. Daniel shivered, unable to stop himself. She could crush him without effort, yet she touched him as though he might break. The thought twisted in his mind. She does not want to kill me. But if not that, then what? She spoke again, her deep voice echoing like thunder through the trees. The words were alien, their meaning unclear. But one sound struck him, clearer than the rest. Mine? Daniel froze. Had he heard it right? His ears rang with the sound. Mine. The word carried a weight, a claim. It was not the sound of a hunter claiming food. It was the sound of someone claiming possession. His body went cold. This was worse. Far worse. He could fight death. He could fight hunger. But how could he fight being owned? Being wanted for something beyond flesh? The giantess tilted her head, studying his reaction. Her glowing eyes softened, not kind but strangely intense. As if she was not just looking at him. As if she was looking into him. Daniel's chest tightened. The fear inside him shifted into something more complex. He was no longer afraid of being eaten. He was afraid of being kept. She brought him closer to her chest. The sound of her enormous heartbeat thundered in his ears. It was slow, steady, powerful. Each beat like the strike of a drum. Her breath washed over him, heavy and warm. Her lips moved again, her voice low. Once more the same word came. Mine? Daniel's mind raced. What does she mean? Does she want me as a pet? As a prize? As something else entirely? The thoughts twisted into nightmares. Images of cages, chains, endless nights in the palm of her hand. The idea of being eaten seemed merciful compared to this. His voice cracked as he shouted, No, I am not yours. The words echoed weakly against her massive form. His defiance was a whisper against thunder. But the giantess paused, blinking slowly. She tilted her head again, the way a curious child might when hearing something new. For a moment, Daniel thought he had broken through. But then her lips curved again into that same faint, unsettling smile. As though his protest meant nothing. As though his spirit was just another piece of him to keep. Her hand tightened slightly around him, not crushing but firm. Daniel gasped, his chest squeezed. The message was clear. He could not escape. She would not let him. And yet she still did not harm him. Her grip held him steady, secure. Like a person holds something precious, not disposable. The terror grew heavier. The twist of her desire revealed itself with every glance, every word, every touch. She wanted him alive. She wanted him near. Not food, not prey. Something else. Something far worse. Daniel's mind reeled as the truth sharpened in his chest. She was not a predator seeking flesh. She was a lonely being seeking possession. And he was the answer to her solitude. A tiny human to fill her endless emptiness. A living thing she could call hers. The fear of death had been simple. But this was not simple. This was endless. To be eaten meant an ending. To be owned meant a forever. And forever in the hands of this giantess was a nightmare darker than death. Daniel struggled again, pushing against her massive fingers. His strength was nothing. His movements were dust against stone. But still he fought, still he resisted. The human spirit within him refused to bow. No, he shouted again. His voice shook, but it carried fire. I am not yours. The giantess's glowing eyes flickered. For the first time her expression shifted. Not hunger, not longing, but something sharper, something like challenge. As if she respected his resistance. As if his defiance only made her claim stronger. Her lips parted again, her voice deep and echoing. Stay, mine. The two words rolled over him like a storm, and with them came the full truth. She was not asking. She was declaring. Daniel's heart pounded. His body shook. He knew now the true danger he faced. The giantess did not want his death. She wanted his life. His presence. His very being. Not as prey, but as possession. The twist in her desire became clear. And Daniel understood with growing dread. He had not escaped death. He had entered something worse. Something far stranger. He was not her meal. He was her chosen. And there was no running from that. Tension and mystery. The giantess's words echoed inside Daniel's mind. Stay mine. They rolled like thunder, shaking not only the air but his very spirit. The meaning was simple, yet it filled him with deeper fear than sharp teeth ever could. She did not want him dead. She wanted him alive. She wanted him close. Daniel sat trembling in her palm, staring up at her massive glowing eyes. They were steady, locked on him as if he were the only living thing in the world. Her breath washed over him in slow, heavy waves. It smelled strange, metallic and sweet, like the air after lightning. Every detail about her made his skin crawl. Her pale skin, her impossible size, her sharp teeth that waited behind faint smiles. And most of all, the way she looked at him. Not as food, not as prey, but as something she refused to let go. His hands shook as he clutched the edge of her finger. He whispered to himself, "This is worse than death." His voice cracked, weak, but he forced the words out again, louder. "This is worse than death." The forest swallowed his words. But she heard them. He knew she did. Her eyes narrowed slightly, and for a long moment she said nothing. That silence pressed heavier than any sound. It was as if she was giving him time to understand the truth. Time to realize escape was impossible. The giantess moved slowly, lowering her hand. Daniel gasped as the world shifted. The trees rose higher, the earth returned beneath him. With a careful motion, she set him down on the ground. Her hand opened, releasing him. Daniel stumbled backward, falling against the roots of a tree. His chest heaved, lungs desperate for air. He could run now. She had let him go. Yet something inside told him not to move. Not because he did not want to, but because he could not. Her glowing eyes still pinned him. Even free of her hand, he was trapped. Her voice rumbled again, one single word. Stay. Daniel froze. He wanted to run, but his legs refused. It was not only fear. It was the weight of her command. The strange, low power in her voice reached through his body like chains. He shook his head, whispering, "No, no, no, no." But still he did not move. The giantess watched him, calm, patient, as if she already knew the choice was not his to make. She crouched lower, her massive form bending down. The ground shook under her weight. Her shadow stretched across him like a cage. Her long hair fell forward, brushing against the soil. Her face lowered until her eyes were level with his tiny form. And then she did something that made his blood run cold. She smiled. It was not wide, not bright. It was small and sharp. A predator's smile mixed with something human. Something that spoke of ownership, not hunger. The kind of smile a collector gives to a treasure they have finally found. Daniel pressed against the tree, his voice shaking. "Why me? What do you want?" His words were desperate, trembling. He knew she could not understand him, yet he spoke because silence was worse. To his shock, the giantess tilted her head, her expression shifting. She murmured something low, strange syllables rolling from her lips. He could not understand. But one word reached him, clear and sharp. Alone. Daniel's breath caught. The word hit him harder than claws. Alone. Her glowing eyes softened, but her grip on his soul tightened. In that moment he understood something chilling. She was not only claiming him. She was confessing. This enormous being, this predator, was not hungry for his flesh. She was hungry for his presence. Her desire came not from the stomach but from the heart, or whatever heart an alien giantess could have. Loneliness, he realized, the most human of feelings. But in her, it was twisted into something dangerous. She was so large, so powerful, so unlike him. And yet she wanted him for the very reason that made them different. Daniel's chest tightened. He whispered to himself, "She's alone, and now she wants me." But the thought did not comfort him. It terrified him. Because loneliness in a creature like her meant obsession. And obsession could be endless. The giantess reached down again, her finger brushing the ground near him. Daniel flinched, pressing tighter against the tree. But she did not grab him. Instead, she traced a line in the dirt with her nail. A circle. Slowly, carefully, she drew it around him. A circle that marked him. A boundary. A claim. Daniel's skin crawled. She was not just keeping him. She was caging him. Not with walls, not with stone, but with her will. The circle was not for him. It was for her. A symbol of her intent. You do not leave. The forest grew quiet again. No birds, no insects, no wind. Only the sound of her breath and his own pounding heart. The tension thickened until it felt like a storm waiting to break. Every second was a question. Would she take him again into her hand? Would she crush him if he disobeyed? Or would she simply watch him forever, keeping him as hers? Daniel shivered. The unknown pressed heavier and heavier. Not knowing her true purpose, not knowing her true limits, that was the real cage. He whispered again, this time more to himself than her. What are you? What do you want from me? His voice cracked, and for the first time her eyes softened more deeply. Her lips parted, and though most of her words were strange, he understood one. A word that froze him in place and left him colder than death. Companion. Daniel's body went numb. Companion. The word struck him like lightning. He was not food, not prey. She wanted him as something else. Someone else. A living presence to fill her endless void. But how could he survive that? How could a human be a companion to a giantess who could crush mountains with her steps? What would that mean for him day after day, year after year? The mystery deepened. Every answer only led to darker questions. Every truth revealed a greater fear. And Daniel realized with horror that this was only the beginning. Her hunger was not for flesh. It was for something far more dangerous. A hunger that would never end. The human's choice. Daniel stood frozen within the circle the giantess had drawn in the dirt. Her glowing eyes loomed above him, unblinking, watching. The words still echoed in his ears. Companion. It rolled through his mind like thunder, shaking him deeper than fear of death ever had. Companion. She did not want to eat him. She did not want to kill him. She wanted him to stay, to fill her emptiness. But how could he? How could a human be a companion to a being so massive, so alien, so terrifying? Daniel's chest tightened as he looked up at her towering frame. Her body cast a shadow that swallowed him whole. Her every breath was a gust of wind. Her every movement was an earthquake. She was a world of her own, and he was nothing. A fragile creature who should have died in the crash. And yet, here he was, alive only because she wanted him. His thoughts twisted. If he refused, would she kill him? If he tried to run, would she hunt him? If he obeyed, would he lose himself forever? There was no easy path. Only choices filled with danger. The giantess tilted her head again. Her long hair spilled over her shoulder like rivers of night. Her voice came low, deep, heavy. Stay, she rumbled. Her hand moved closer, her fingers brushing the ground beside him. It was not a command of hunger. It was a command of longing. Yet still it bound him. Daniel's heart pounded. He shook his head, his voice cracking. No, I can't. His words sounded small, weak against her thunderous voice. But he forced them out again, louder. I am not yours. The giantess's glowing eyes narrowed. For a long, terrifying moment, the forest fell silent. No sound, no movement, only her piercing gaze. Her hand froze in the dirt. Her lips parted slightly, revealing teeth. Not in hunger, but in something sharper. Frustration. Daniel swallowed hard. He felt his body shake, his knees nearly buckling. But deep inside, the human spirit pushed against the fear. He remembered Earth. He remembered the faces of people. He remembered what it meant to be human. To choose. Even when choice seemed impossible. He forced himself to stand straighter. His voice trembled, but he raised it anyway. I will not be a thing, I will not be your pet. His chest burned, his throat raw. But the words carried fire. The kind of fire that only comes when a human refuses to break. The giantess blinked slowly. Her head tilted, her eyes unreadable. Then she leaned back slightly. Her hand lifted, hovering above him. Daniel braced, expecting her to crush him for his defiance. But she did not. Instead, her voice rumbled again, low and deep. Strong. The word hit him like a stone. Strong? She had understood him, not his exact words but his defiance, his will. And she did not destroy him for it. Instead, she acknowledged it, respected it. Daniel's chest heaved, his mind racing. What did that mean? If she valued strength, then perhaps his resistance did not anger her. Perhaps it only deepened her desire. Perhaps to her, a companion was not something weak to keep, but something strong enough to stand before her. The thought chilled him even more. Because if that was true, then his fight was not saving him. It was binding him tighter. The giantess moved again, her massive hand lowering slowly. Her finger brushed against his chest, pressing gently. Daniel gasped, every nerve in his body on fire. The touch was heavy but not crushing. Her eyes locked on him, glowing, unblinking. And again she whispered, Mine? Daniel shook his head, his voice breaking. No. I belong to no one. He clenched his fists, forcing courage through trembling hands. I belong to myself. The giantess's lips parted. For a moment her expression shifted again. Not anger, not hunger, but curiosity. Her massive eyes studied him more deeply, as if she were trying to understand this human idea, this strange refusal to be owned. The forest grew heavy with silence again. Daniel's heart pounded, sweat dripping down his face. He knew he was standing on the edge of something. One wrong word, one wrong move, and she could end him. But still he stood his ground. The giantess lowered her head, her long hair brushing against the soil. Her eyes burned brighter, her lips curved slightly. And then she spoke again. Together? Daniel froze. The word chilled him and yet confused him. Together? Not mine, not stay. But together? His mind swirled with questions. Was she changing her demand? Was she offering instead of commanding? Or was this another form of her claim? A softer chain instead of a hard one? His voice cracked as he whispered, "What do you mean? What are you asking of me?" Of course, she could not answer in his language, but her actions spoke louder. Her hand opened again, palm flat on the ground. An invitation. Not to escape, but to step forward. To climb into her hand by choice. Daniel's stomach twisted. It was a choice, yes, but a choice between cages. Step forward and accept her, or run and face the crushing power of her hand. Either way he was trapped. But at least now the decision felt like his. His knees trembled, his mind screamed. This was the moment, the human's choice, to surrender or to stand, to trust the unknown or to reject it fully. Daniel closed his eyes, breathing hard. He remembered his ship, his mission, his people. He remembered that humans had always faced the impossible. They had always walked into the unknown, not because it was safe, but because they refused to bow to fear. He opened his eyes again, staring up at the giantess. Her palm waited, steady, patient. Her eyes glowed with expectation. And Daniel, his voice low but steady, whispered, "If I step forward, it is my choice, not yours." The giantess tilted her head again. Her lips curved, and for the first time, her expression softened. Not predator, not master. Something closer to understanding. Her deep voice rumbled once more. Choice. The word shook him. She had repeated it. She had understood, at least in part. And that single word carried more weight than all her others. Daniel took a step forward, his legs trembling, then another, until he stood before her massive palm, the dirt still fresh from where her nails had carved the circle. He placed his hand on her skin, cold and smooth, and whispered, "This is my choice." The giantess's eyes glowed brighter. Her hand lifted him gently, slowly. Her other hand curved around protectively. She had claimed him before, but now he realized he had claimed something too. Not freedom, not safety, but the power to choose. Even in the grasp of a giantess, he was still human, and humans never surrendered completely. The revelation and ending. The giantess lifted Daniel once more, but this time it felt different. Before, her grip had been a cage, a prison made of flesh. Now her massive palm rose slow, careful, almost reverent. She cradled him not as prey or possession, but as something she had long searched for. Daniel's heart still pounded. Fear clung to him like shadow. Yet beneath that fear, something else stirred. A strange calmness. Because for the first time since the crash, he had chosen. And though his choice had placed him back into her hands, it gave him strength. The giantess brought him close to her face. Her glowing eyes filled his vision. Her breath swept over him like warm wind. He braced for hunger, for sharp teeth, for pain. But instead, her lips parted and she whispered, "Not mine. Not stay." But a word that chilled and puzzled him at once. Together? Daniel's chest tightened. Together? That single word burned in his mind. It was no longer command, it was declaration. She was not asking, but she was not taking either. She was binding. Her desire was not to consume, but to connect. He stared up at her enormous face. Her sharp features softened by the faintest curve of her lips. Her massive eyes no longer looked like predator's eyes. They looked like the eyes of something broken. Something ancient and alone. The truth unfolded inside him. She was not only a hunter. She was a prisoner too. A prisoner of her size, her power, her endless solitude. Daniel swallowed hard. His fear did not vanish, but it shifted. He whispered, his voice shaking. "You don't want food, you don't want prey, you want me because you are alone." The giantess tilted her head. Her glowing eyes softened further. She rumbled low in her throat, a sound that was not hunger, but something closer to sorrow. For a moment, Daniel thought she might weep, But instead she spoke again. Her words still strange, but one rang clear. Yes. Daniel's breath caught. The truth was heavier than chains. This being, so vast, so powerful, so terrifying, was driven not by hunger but by loneliness. She wanted not flesh but company. Yet that made her no less dangerous. Because loneliness the strong could twist into obsession. And obsession could swallow him whole without teeth. He clenched his fists, his voice low. I am human. I choose for myself. His words shook, but his spirit burned. If you want me beside you, it must be my choice. The giantess blinked slowly. Her massive eyes reflected his tiny form. She leaned closer, her lips parting. Her deep voice rumbled the single word again. Choice. The word echoed like thunder. And Daniel realized with a start. She understood. Not fully, not perfectly. But enough. Enough to know that he was not a pet, not a thing. He was a being with will. Her hand shifted. Instead of closing around him, she flattened her palm, leaving him standing free upon it. The gesture sent a shiver down his spine, because it meant trust, and it meant danger. She was offering him a stage, but she could still close her hand at any moment. Daniel steadied himself. His voice cracked, but he shouted, I will not be a slave. If I stay, it is because I choose to. If I walk away, you must let me. The forest seemed to hold its breath. The giantess loomed above him, silent. Then slowly she nodded. The massive curve of her head dipped once. And in that nod, Daniel felt both relief and dread. Because a nod was not a promise. It was only acknowledgement. She whispered again. Her voice soft, deep. Together. Daniel's chest ached. He did not trust her. He feared her. Yet he also saw the truth in her eyes. The loneliness that had haunted her for who knows how many years. And he understood something terrible. He could leave now, if she allowed it. But the memory of her gaze would follow him forever. He would always know she was out here. Watching, waiting, longing. His knees weakened as he whispered, What are you? Why me? The giantess lowered her head further. Her glowing eyes dimmed slightly. Her lips parted. And for the first time he understood not only a word, but the meaning behind it. Last. Daniel's heart dropped. Last. The last of her kind. The last of her people. The last giantess in a world of silence. And she had chosen him. Not as prey. Not as toy. But as answer to her endless solitude. The truth cut through him. His fear twisted into something heavier. Because now he saw her not only as monster, but as tragedy. And that made her no less dangerous. But it made walking away impossible. Daniel's voice broke as he whispered, You don't want to be alone. Her massive eyes shimmered faintly. She leaned close, her breath rolling over him like a tide. And she whispered once more, Stay, choice, together. Daniel closed his eyes. He thought of Earth, of humanity, of the endless struggle to survive. Humans had always faced predators, storms, war, emptiness, and they had always found ways to endure. Perhaps this was no different. Perhaps this was another storm to weather. Not with strength of body, but with strength of spirit. He opened his eyes again. He stood tall in her palm, his voice low but steady. I will not be yours, but I will walk with you. Together, because I choose it. The giantess blinked slowly. Her lips curved faintly. And for the first time, Daniel saw something almost human in her expression. Relief. The forest around them remained silent. But in that silence, something had shifted. He was no longer prey. No longer possession. He was companion. Not because she demanded it, but because he had chosen it. And though the danger had not ended, though her obsession still loomed like a shadow, Daniel knew one truth would guide him. The truth that gave humanity strength in every impossible battle. Sometimes the scariest monsters only want what we all do. To not be alone.